They said he was too short, too fragile, not built for this league. And when his shoulder exploded in a meaningless game, the entire NFL walked away. Doctors whispered the words every athlete fears: career ending. At 27 years old, Drew Brees had no team, no arm, and seemingly no future. This should have been the end. But what happened next didn't just save one man's career. It resurrected an entire city and rewrote NFL history forever. Drew Brees was never the chosen one. Standing barely 6 feet tall in a league that worships size and arm strength, scouts saw a liability before they saw potential. Just a smart kid with average measurables trying to convince 32 franchises he deserved a shot. The 2001 draft came and went. Brees watched from the green room as his name got buried deeper into irrelevance. Finally, in the second round, the San Diego Chargers called his name, not as their savior, but an option, a backup plan. Let's see what happens kind of pick. And that label, that feeling of being an afterthought, that's where Drew Brees learned the most valuable lesson of his career. When nobody believes in you, you better learn to believe twice as hard in yourself. His early years in San Diego weren't pretty. The interceptions piled up, the losses mounted. Media members questioned whether he had what it took. By 2004, the Chargers front office had seen enough doubt to make a move that felt like a death sentence. They drafted Philip Rivers 4th overall. The message was crystal clear without anyone having to say it out loud. You're replaceable. Most quarterbacks crumble under that kind of organizational rejection. The confidence bleeds out. The fire dims. Careers quietly fade into coaching gigs and broadcast booths. But something switched inside Drew Brees that season. Instead of shrinking, he exploded. Instead of playing scared, he played possessed. That 2004 campaign turned into his breakout year. He led the Chargers to the playoffs, put up career numbers, and earned NFL Comeback Player of the Year honors. For one beautiful moment, it looked like he'd silenced every doubter, like he'd finally proven he belonged. The narrative flipped. Drew Brees wasn't a backup plan anymore. He was a winner. Then came December 31st, 2005. Week 17. A meaningless game against the Broncos with playoff seeding already locked. One scramble, one desperate dive for a loose football. And in that split second, everything Drew Brees had fought for shattered along with his throwing shoulder, rotator cuff torn apart, labrum destroyed. The kind of injury that ends careers, especially for a quarterback whose biggest criticism was already his size and arm strength. Doctors examined the damage and delivered the gut punch. This might be it. This might be career-ending. San Diego didn't hesitate. They moved on immediately, handing the keys to Philip Rivers without looking back. The Miami Dolphins showed interest, brought Brees in for a physical, and then walked away after their medical staff expressed concerns. Drew Brees found himself with no team, no certainty his arm would ever work right again, and no clear path forward. But there was one team willing to take the risk. The New Orleans Saints. A franchise historically known more for losing than winning. A city still broken and bleeding from Hurricane Katrina's devastation just months earlier. Sean Payton, the new head coach, looked at Drew Brees and saw something nobody else did. A fighter, a match. What happened next wasn't just a football story, it was a resurrection. Drew Brees didn't just rehab his shoulder, he rebuilt his entire identity. And New Orleans got a symbol of hope. Every completion felt like proof the city could heal. Every touchdown felt like defiance against everyone who said it was over. The Saints transformed from laughingstock to contender. Records started falling, and the Superdome started believing again. Then came 2009, the season where everything impossible became inevitable. The Saints rolled through the regular season, punched their ticket to Super Bowl 44, and faced Peyton Manning's Indianapolis Colts. On the biggest stage in sports, Drew Brees delivered a masterclass, 32 completions, 288 yards, 2 touchdowns. But he wasn't finished rewriting history. Over the next decade, Drew Brees became the most prolific passer the NFL had ever seen. He shattered Peyton Manning's all-time passing yards record. He became the most accurate quarterback in league history. He led the Saints to 9 playoff appearances and gave New Orleans a decade of hope and relevance they'd never experienced before. They called him too short. They said his arm was too weak. They walked away when his shoulder exploded. And Drew Brees responded by becoming one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. Not because he had the perfect build or the cannon arm or the first-round pedigree. Because he refused to disappear. Because when the NFL gave up on him, he doubled down on himself. That's not talent. That's will. That's legacy. That's immortality. Drew Brees didn't just survive the doubts. He turned them into fuel and burned brighter than anyone thought possible.